Well, hello everybody. It's Greg coming here from Good News for Israel, and it's my great joy to be taking 5 and Selaring with you today, just taking some time to be with the Lord and reflecting on Him and growing closer to Him. Well, we're looking at this very special group of people called the Sons of the Prophets from Bethel, and investigating some of the interesting facts about them, that they were large in numbers, that they lived in dormitories, that the master prophet ate with them from time to time when he was with them and provided some of their needs. Did you know that some of the sons of the prophets were actually married with children? In 2 Kings chapter 4 verse 1 it says, a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, your servant, my husband, is dead. And you know that your servant feared the Lord, and the creditor is coming to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. Here we see a particular member of the guild of the prophets in the region around Bethel had a wife and children. Clearly, he had a home where she and the children lived while he studied and trained in this group or school of the prophets. And presumably he worked, he also had some source of income, but had not done well financially. And now he had died for whatever reason, and he'd left a debt. And by the sound of it, it was a big debt. And it was certainly a debt that was big enough that this precious woman could not find a way to repay it. And of course, in those days, there was no social security system and no jobs. So how could her debt ever be repaid? In these days, an outstanding debt could be paid by, in these days that they lived in, the children could be sold as slaves. What a horrible thought, but that was what happened there. And, it is actually still happening in many places in the world today. But this member of the Son of the Prophets had been a God-fearing man, and he dedicated his life to the formal pursuit of God, like a Bible college. And when he had unexpectedly died, he'd left his wife in a very desperate situation. When the people that she owed the money to came and threatened to take her children as slaves, what did she do? She went straight to the master prophet Elisha. Now, he didn't have no answer for her. He straight away activated a couple of principles here. Particularly, remember we talked about the principle of asking. Go back and look at a previous video on the principle of asking. And he did that by clarifying what she wanted. I mean, it seems obvious, but he wanted her to clarify, because that's the principle of asking. And then finding out what she already had. That's another principle. So what did she have on hand that she could utilize? And then the third principle, activating her faith by getting her to do something with what she had. Remember, he was the disciple of Elijah the prophet. He learned this from Elijah the prophet. So we read in 2 Kings chapter 4 and verse 2, so Elisha said to her, what shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house? And she said, your maidservant has nothing in the house but a jar of oil. Then he said, well, go and borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors. Empty vessels. Don't gather just a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you, and your sons will then pour into all those vessels and set aside the full ones. So she went from him, verse 5, and shut the door behind her and her sons, and the sons brought the vessels to her, and she poured out the oil. Now it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said to her son, bring me another vessel. And he said to her, there is no other vessel. So at that point the oil ceased. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, go, sell the oil, pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. Very practical advice. A miracle, but great practical advice. I won't go into the actual miracle too much here, except to say that Elisha helped this widow and the mother. Her husband had been a man from the sons of the prophets around the area of Bethel. So there we see that the sons of prophets were normal young men, some of whom had their own wives and families. And the master prophet was like a father to them and their families. Do you have a person in your life who's mentoring you at the moment in the things of the kingdom of God? Someone that you and your family look up to? Do you think it's of value to have a person like this in your life to learn from? Well, there's a few things to think and pause and consider. Until the next video, why don't you do that? Why don't you start to pause and consider the value of having that person in your life? Maybe tell them so. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe. I pray that you have a fantastic day. The Lord bless you, and bye for now.